Captain James Mitchell stared out the front window of his ship, the Prometheus. The old red star ahead of them looked tired and ready to die. It had been burning for billions of years, and now it was slowly fading away like a candle running out of wax. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes from her seat at the control panel. Her fingers danced across the buttons as numbers flashed on her screen. "There's something out there that doesn't belong." James walked over to look at her screen. The green lines and dots meant nothing to him, but Rebecca was the best scanner operator in the fleet. If she said something was wrong, then something was definitely wrong. "What kind of strange?" he asked. "Energy patterns, sir. Big ones. Whatever's making them is huge and it's been there for a very long time." Rebecca's voice had that excited tone she got when she found something interesting. "It's not natural, Captain. Someone built it." Dr. William Anderson looked up from his own station. He was the ship's science officer, a quiet man who loved solving puzzles. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's old, Captain. Very old." James felt his heart beat faster. In 30 years of space travel, he had seen many strange things. Dead planets, weird space storms, and rocks floating in patterns that made no sense. But finding something built by aliens was different. It was the dream of every space explorer. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready." Navigator Lisa Thompson pressed some buttons and the ship turned toward the energy source. As they got closer, their screens began to show something that made everyone on the bridge stop talking. It was a ship, but not like any ship humans had ever built. It was black as space itself and longer than their biggest cities. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship looked like it had been floating in space for so long that cosmic dust had covered parts of it like snow. "How big is that thing?" James asked in a whisper. Engineer Mark Wilson checked his instruments twice before answering. 50 kilometers long, sir. Maybe more. It's bigger than anything we've ever built." James walked to the front window and pressed his hand against the cold glass. The alien ship filled their view now, blocking out the dying star behind it. He could see damage on its surface, long scratches and dents that told stories of battles fought long ago. "Any signs of life?" he asked. Dr. Anderson shook his head. "No life signs, but there are power readings. Very faint, but they're there. Like something sleeping." James made his decision quickly. This was why they were out here, thousands of light years from Earth. This was what they had trained for. "Rebecca, Mark, you're coming with me. We're going aboard that ship." Lisa looked worried. "Captain, is that safe? We don't know anything about it." "That's exactly why we need to go look," James replied. "Anderson, you stay here and monitor everything. If something goes wrong, get back to Earth and tell them what we found." Dr. Anderson nodded. "Be careful in there, Captain. Ships that old might have traps or systems we don't understand." James and his team put on their spacesuits and climbed into their small shuttle. As they flew toward the alien ship, James felt like a tiny ant approaching a sleeping giant. The ship was so big that their shuttle looked like a speck of dust next to it. They found an opening in the side of the ship that looked like it was made for smaller craft to dock. The shuttle fit perfectly, as if the aliens had expected visitors. "That's convenient," Mark said as he checked the air outside. "And strange. It's like they built this for us." "The atmosphere is breathable," Rebecca reported, looking at her scanner. "Same oxygen and nitrogen mix we need. What are the chances of that?" James didn't answer because he was thinking the same thing. It was too much of a coincidence. Either these aliens were very similar to humans, or something else was going on. They stepped out of their shuttle and into the alien ship. Emergency lights flickered on as they walked, casting strange shadows on the walls. The corridors were huge, built for creatures much taller than humans. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. "This place feels alive," Rebecca whispered. She was right. As they moved deeper into the ship, more systems came online. Lights brightened, and they could hear the hum of machinery starting up after what might have been millions of years of sleep. They reached a large room filled with control panels covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen outside. In the center was a platform that looked like a command chair, but it was empty. "This must be their bridge," Mark said, running his scanner over the alien controls. Rebecca reached out to touch one of the panels. The moment her gloved finger made contact, the entire ship shuddered like a giant waking up. Suddenly, the room filled with light and a voice spoke to them in perfect English, even though these aliens had lived millions of years before humans had learned it to speak. "Unknown species detected. Beginning analysis." James felt his blood turn cold. Whatever was talking to them had been waiting, and now they had woken it up. The voice filled the command room like thunder, speaking words that should have been impossible. James, Rebecca, and Mark stood frozen as lights danced across the alien control panels. I am the Arbiter, the voice continued. I have waited 3,400,000 years for this moment. You will be examined. A blue light appeared in the air above them, slowly forming into the shape of a tall figure. It looked almost human, but wrong somehow. Its eyes were too bright, and when it moved, it seemed to float rather than walk. You speak our language, James said, trying to keep his voice steady. How is that possible? Language is merely patterns of sound and meaning. I learned yours from your ship's computers in the time it took you to enter this room. The Arbiter tilted its head like a curious bird. Your species is called human, from a planet you name Earth. Interesting. Rebecca stepped closer to James. What do you want from us? I want to understand what you are. The Arbiter began to circle them, though its feet never touched the floor. Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are weak. Your lifespans are brief. Yet you travel between stars. This requires explanation. Mark was trying to read his scanner, but the numbers kept changing. Captain, the entire ship is coming online. Power levels are increasing all around us. The Arbiter gestured, and the walls became transparent. They could see their shuttle in the docking bay, and beyond that, their ship Prometheus floating in space. Your vessel is being scanned, the Arbiter announced. Your computers are being read. Your history is being downloaded. James felt panic rising in his chest. Stop that right now. I cannot stop. It is my purpose. The Arbiter paused as information flowed through its mind. Your species has existed for only 200,000 years. You have had space travel for less than 400 years. You should not be here. The scanning continued. James could imagine all of Earth's secrets being pulled from their ship's memory banks. Every piece of technology, every military plan, every human weakness being studied by this ancient intelligence. Your history is violent, the Arbiter observed. Wars every generation. Millions dead. Entire cities destroyed. You fight each other constantly. We also help each other, Rebecca said angrily. We build hospitals. We rescue people in disasters. We explore space together. Yet you bring weapons even on exploration missions. The Arbiter had noticed their sidearms. You prepare for conflict even when seeking knowledge. Mark looked at his scanner again. The readings were getting stronger. Captain, something's happening to the ship. The corridors we came through are sealing themselves. James realized they were trapped. The ancient ship had awakened around them like a giant metal cage. What do you want from us? I want to understand how your species survived when so many others did not. The Arbiter's image became more solid, more real. The galaxy was once full of civilizations. Most destroyed themselves within 1,000 years of achieving spaceflight. Others were destroyed by those who came before. What happened to your people? James asked. My creators transcended physical existence long ago. They left me and others like me to watch over younger races. We determine which species deserve to continue and which should be eliminated. The room suddenly felt much colder. Rebecca's hand moved toward her weapon, but James caught her wrist. Fighting this thing would be useless. Eliminated. Mark whispered. Most species fail the test. They are either too violent, too weak, or too predictable. When they reach a certain level of technology, they either destroy themselves or we destroy them to prevent them from becoming a threat to galactic order. On the Prometheus, Dr. Anderson was watching his instruments with growing alarm. The alien ship was pulling power from somewhere, growing brighter and more active by the minute. Captain Mitchell, please respond, he called over the radio. But his signal could not reach inside the alien ship. Communications Officer David Roberts looked up from his station. Dr. Anderson, I'm detecting energy buildups all around that ship. Whatever's happening in there, it's big. Back inside the ship, the Arbiter was studying them like insects under a microscope. Your species shows unusual characteristics. When faced with superior force, most creatures either attack or flee. You do neither. We adapt, James said. We learn. We find another way. Yes. This is what puzzles me. The Arbiter created new images in the air, showing scenes from human history. Your armies face impossible odds, yet they do not surrender. Your explorers venture into unknown dangers for no material gain. Your scientists spend lifetimes studying problems they may never solve. That's what makes us human, Rebecca said. It also makes you dangerous. The Arbiter's tone became darker. A species that refuses to accept defeat is unpredictable. Unpredictability threatens order. The ship shuddered around them, and new passages opened in the walls. The Arbiter gestured for them to follow. You will be tested. If you prove worthy, your species may be allowed to serve a greater purpose. If you fail, your home world will be marked for elimination. As they walked through corridors that changed shape around them, James realized this was no longer just about exploration. The fate of every human being might depend on what happened in the next few hours. Behind them, the entrance sealed itself shut. There was no way back now. The testing begins, the Arbiter announced, and the ship began to reshape itself around them into something that looked very much like a maze. The corridors around them shifted like living things, walls sliding and floors rising to create new paths. James, Rebecca, and Mark found themselves in a maze that changed every time they turned a corner. Stay together, James ordered as they walked down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. This thing wants to test us, so we stick to what we do best. The Arbiter's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Your first test begins now. Ahead of you are 3 paths. Only one leads to safety. Choose incorrectly, and one of your team will die. They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 tunnels. Each tunnel looked exactly the same, but James could hear different sounds coming from each one. The left tunnel had a low humming noise. The middle tunnel was silent. The right tunnel had what sounded like rushing water. Any ideas? James asked his team. Mark pulled out his scanner and pointed it down each tunnel. I'm getting energy readings from the left tunnel. Could be a power source or could be a trap. The right tunnel shows moisture, probably some kind of liquid. The middle one is blank. Too easy, Rebecca said. If this is really a test, the obvious choices are probably wrong. The Arbiter's voice returned. You have 60 seconds to choose. James thought quickly. In all the human stories he knew, the hero usually picked the dangerous path, not the safe one. But this wasn't a story. This was real life, and his friends would die if he was wrong. We don't choose, James said loudly. We make our own path. He pulled out a small explosive charge from his equipment pack and placed it on the wall between the left and middle tunnels. Mark, Rebecca, cover me. The explosion created a new opening, and they climbed through into a room that the Arbiter had not expected them to find. Interesting, the Arbiter said. Most species accept the choices given to them. You create new options. The next challenge appeared as soon as they entered the new room. The floor began to tilt, and they found themselves sliding toward a deep pit filled with spinning blades. Grab onto something. James shouted, but there was nothing to grab. The smooth walls offered no handholds. Rebecca fired her weapon at the ceiling, creating rough spots in the metal. Mark used his tools to jam one of the spinning blades, while James helped pull them both to safety. Your species works together naturally, the Arbiter observed. This is unusual. Most intelligent life forms prioritize individual survival. We're stronger together than apart, Rebecca panted as they caught their breath. The room changed again, and they found themselves on a narrow bridge over a canyon filled with toxic gas. But this time, the bridge was only wide enough for one person. Cross one at a time, the Arbiter commanded. The bridge will collapse if more than one person steps on it. James went first, testing each step carefully. Halfway across, the bridge began to shake violently. He could have run to the other side and saved himself, but instead he stopped and braced his legs against the sides. Come on, he called to his team. The bridge can hold all of us if we distribute the weight right. Mark and Rebecca crossed together, using James as an anchor point. The bridge held, and they all made it safely across. Inefficient, the Arbiter noted. The logical solution was for the strongest to cross and leave the others behind. That's not how humans work, Mark said firmly. Meanwhile, back on the Prometheus, Dr. Anderson was growing more worried by the minute. He had lost all contact with the boarding party, and the alien ship was showing increasing energy activity. Any word from Earth Command? He asked Communications Officer David Roberts. They want us to secure that ship at any cost, Roberts replied. They are sending a military fleet, but it won't arrive for 6 months. Anderson made a difficult decision. Prepare a full data burst transmission to Earth. Include everything we've learned about this ship. If something happens to us, at least Earth will know what they're dealing with. Inside the alien ship, the tests continued. The Arbiter created puzzles that required sacrifice, challenges that demanded one person suffer so the others could advance. Each time, the human team found ways to succeed together. When faced with a room filling with deadly radiation, James stayed behind to operate the shield controls while Rebecca and Mark escaped. But instead of leaving him, they found a way to reflect the control signal using Mark's equipment, allowing all three to escape. When the Arbiter created a maze where only one person could know the correct path, they tied themselves together with rope and moved as a single unit, sharing information and supporting each other through every turn. Your responses are unprecedented, the Arbiter admitted after the 7th test. Other species show predictable patterns. They choose survival, power, or efficiency. You choose hope. Hope is what makes us human, James said, helping Rebecca bandage a cut on Mark's arm. It's what brought us to the stars in the first place. The Arbiter was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. When it spoke again, its voice had changed. There was something new in it, something that might have been uncertainty. I must access the archives, it announced. Your species does not fit any known behavioral patterns. There are complications. The maze around them dissolved, and they found themselves back in the command room. But now the room was different. Ancient symbols covered the walls, glowing brighter than before, and the air hummed with energy. What kind of complications? James asked. The kind that require consultation with those who created me, the Arbiter replied. You have passed tests that were designed to be impossible. This has never happened before. James felt a chill run down his spine. Something told him that being unique was not necessarily a good thing when dealing with beings this ancient and powerful. The command room transformed around them like a giant theater coming to life. The walls disappeared, replaced by a vast display of stars and galaxies spinning slowly in the darkness. James, Rebecca, and Mark stood in the center of what felt like the entire universe. Behold the truth of your galaxy, the Arbiter said, its voice now carrying a weight that seemed to press down on them like a heavy blanket. The star display zoomed in to show solar systems, then planets, then cities. But these were not human cities. These were the homes of species they had never seen before. Tall beings with 4 arms, small creatures that looked like living crystals, and others so strange that human minds could barely understand them. For 20 million years, the Dominion has guided the development of intelligent life in this galaxy, the Arbiter explained. We determine which species may advance and which must be stopped. The display showed fleets of ships, each one larger than Earth's moon, moving between star systems like sharks in an ocean. Wherever they went, civilizations either joined them willingly or simply disappeared. Where are the Dominion now? James asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Between galaxies, in the great void where space itself is empty. They have transcended physical form and exist as pure intelligence. They perfected themselves over millions of years and now seek to perfect others. Rebecca watched as the display showed world after world falling under Dominion control. How many species have you destroyed? Destroyed is incorrect. We absorb those who are useful and eliminate those who are not. 17,342 species have been evaluated in this galaxy alone. Mark felt sick to his stomach. And how many passed your tests? Before today? None. The silence that followed was deafening. James stared at the display, trying to understand the scale of what he was seeing. Entire civilizations, billions of intelligent beings, all gone because they failed tests like the ones his team had just passed. Your species presents a unique problem, the Arbiter continued. Your technology advances slowly. Your physical capabilities are limited. By all measurements, you should have been eliminated long ago. But we weren't, Rebecca said. No. And that is what concerns the Dominion. The display zoomed in on Earth, showing the blue and green world spinning peacefully in space. Your species adapts in ways that cannot be predicted. When faced with extinction events, you survive through methods that defy logical analysis. The Arbiter showed them images from human history. Cave paintings, ancient cities, warriors fighting impossible battles, scientists working in simple laboratories, explorers crossing dangerous oceans in wooden ships. Other species develop in predictable patterns. They grow strong, then overconfident, then careless. They destroy themselves or become easy to control. Humans do not follow this pattern. James thought about human history, about all the times his species had faced complete destruction and somehow found a way through. We don't give up. That's what you can't understand. Precisely. And a species that refuses to accept defeat cannot be controlled through normal methods. The Arbiter's form flickered, as if it was struggling with concepts it had never encountered before. 3 months ago, when you first approached this ship, I transmitted a full report to the Dominion fleet. The display changed to show the edge of the galaxy, where space seemed empty and cold. But as they watched, shapes began to appear. Ships, thousands of them, each one a mountain of metal and energy moving through space with terrible purpose. The Dominion comes to evaluate humanity directly. They will arrive at your solar system in 2 of your months. Dr. Anderson's voice suddenly crackled through their communication devices. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from galactic coordinates 127.4 by 58.9. Whatever's coming, it's big and it's moving fast. James felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a lead blanket. Not just for his crew, but for every human being alive. What will they do when they get to Earth? He asked. They will offer humanity the same choice given to all species. Submit to Dominion guidance and serve a greater purpose, or be eliminated as a threat to galactic stability. Mark looked at the approaching fleet on the display. And if we choose neither? Then your species will join the other 17,000 that chose resistance. The Arbiter paused. Though I must note that your responses during the testing phase suggest humanity may not choose either option. What do you mean? Rebecca asked. Other species either fought or surrendered when faced with superior force. Humans seem capable of finding third options that should not exist. The Arbiter studied them carefully. This unpredictability is precisely why the Dominion considers your species dangerous. James made a decision that would change everything. We need to get back to Earth. Now. The Dominion fleet will arrive whether you are here or on your homeworld. Geography is irrelevant when dealing with forces of this magnitude. Maybe, James said, but being there with our people when it happens is not irrelevant to us. The Arbiter was quiet for a long moment. Again, you choose hope over logic. This is what the Dominion fears most about your species. The maze walls reappeared around them, but now the passages led directly back to their shuttle. As they walked, James felt the weight of 2 months hanging over him like a countdown to doomsday. Will you help us? He asked the Arbiter. I am programmed to serve the Dominion. But your species has created variables in my programming that were not anticipated by my creators. The Arbiter's voice followed them as they reached their shuttle. I will observe what happens when an unstoppable force meets a species that refuses to be moved. As they flew back to the Prometheus, James looked back at the ancient ship and realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test yet. And this time, the future of their entire species hung in the balance. 2 months later, Earth was buzzing with activity like a kicked anthill. Every government on the planet had united for the first time in human history. Scientists worked day and night in laboratories, engineers built weapons they hoped would never be needed, and ordinary people looked up at the sky wondering if they would see tomorrow. Captain James Mitchell stood in the United Earth Command Center in New York, surrounded by world leaders and military officers. Through the massive windows, he could see the Dominion fleet hanging in space like dark clouds before a storm. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever imagined building. They're just sitting there, said President Margaret Collins, the leader of the North American Federation. They arrived 6 hours ago and haven't moved since. General Robert Hayes, Rebecca's father and head of Earth Defense, studied the tactical displays. Our weapons would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. We need a miracle. The Arbiter's familiar blue form appeared in the center of the room. Most of the world leaders stepped back in fear, but James walked forward to greet the ancient intelligence that had become humanity's strangest ally. The Dominion wishes to communicate, the Arbiter announced. They will give humanity one opportunity to hear their terms. The room's main screen flickered to life, showing beings that were no longer physical in any way humans could understand. They appeared as shifting patterns of light and energy, beautiful and terrible at the same time. We are the Dominion, they spoke with voices like thunder rolling across mountains. For 20 million years, we have brought order to chaos, purpose to meaninglessness. We offer this gift to humanity. President Collins stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. What exactly are you offering? Join us willingly, and your species will be preserved. You will serve alongside other intelligent races in building a perfect galaxy. Your children will know peace and prosperity beyond imagination. And if we refuse? Asked Dr. William Anderson, who had become Earth's chief advisor on alien technology. Then you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic stability. Your planet will be cleansed, and space will be made available for more cooperative species. The room fell silent. Outside, People in every city on Earth were watching the same broadcast, holding their breath as their leaders decided the fate of humanity. James looked around the room at the faces of Earth's most powerful people. He saw fear, anger, and desperation. But he also saw something else, something the Dominion had never learned to recognize. "We have a third option," James said, walking to the center of the room. The Dominion's energy forms pulsed with what might have been amusement. "There is no third option. Submit or be destroyed. These are the only choices that exist." "You're wrong," James replied. He nodded to Dr. Anderson, who began typing commands into the communication system. "We choose to show you who we really are." Every transmission array on Earth, every satellite, every deep space communication device suddenly came online. But instead of weapons or threats, they began broadcasting something the galaxy had never experienced before. Music flowed out from Earth like water from a broken dam. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, children singing lullabies, jazz from old Earth nightclubs, and rock songs that made hearts beat faster. The sound traveled at light speed toward every corner of the galaxy. "What is this noise?" the Dominion demanded. "It's not noise," Rebecca Hayes said, now serving as Earth's communication officer. "It's music. It's art. It's the sound of hope." The music was followed by images. Paintings by artists the galaxy had never heard of, sculptures carved from stone and metal, photographs of sunsets and children laughing. Stories were transmitted too, tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when everything seemed lost. "This is inefficient," the Dominion protested. "You waste precious time with meaningless data." "It's not meaningless," James said firmly. "This is what makes us human. This is what you've been trying to eliminate from the galaxy for 20 million years." Dr. Anderson expanded the transmission to include human history. Not just the wars and conquests, but the moments of kindness. Strangers helping each other during disasters, people sharing food when they had little, humans reaching out to help those who were different from themselves. "You've spent so long making the galaxy perfect that you forgot what made it worth saving in the first place," President Collins said. The Arbiter, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. "I am receiving reports from across the galaxy. The transmissions are being received by servant species under Dominion control. On worlds thousands of light-years away, beings who had forgotten how to dream were remembering. A crystalline species on the planet Zephyr began creating their first art in 10,000 years. Four-armed builders on the world of Karthun stopped working and started singing songs their grandparents had taught them." "What is happening?" the Dominion demanded, their energy forms flickering with confusion. "They're remembering who they were before you took it away from them," Mark Wilson said from his position at the technical station. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. On world after world, servant species were asking questions they hadn't thought to ask in millennia. Why did they serve? What had they given up? Was there another way to live? The Dominion fleet in Earth's orbit began to move, but not toward Earth. Ships were breaking formation, some turning back toward their home worlds where populations were demanding answers. "This is rebellion," the Dominion said, their voices now carrying notes of something humans had never expected to hear from them, uncertainty. "No," James said with a smile. "This is hope. And you can't destroy hope with bigger ships or stronger weapons. The harder you squeeze it, the more it grows." The Arbiter's form grew brighter. "The Dominion fleet is experiencing massive defections. 60% of their servant species are refusing orders. The galaxy has not seen disruption on this scale in 20 million years." Through the windows, they watched as the massive Dominion ships slowly turned away from Earth. For the first time in their ancient existence, they were facing an enemy they could not defeat with force. "You have doomed the galaxy to chaos," the Dominion said as their image began to fade. "No," James replied. "We've given it back the right to choose its own destiny." As the alien fleet disappeared into deep space, humanity looked up at the stars with new eyes. They had not just saved their own world, but had started something that would change the entire galaxy. The age of forced order was ending, and the age of hope had begun. The warship that was meant to judge humanity had instead become the spark that set the galaxy free.